Geez, dude, you need to change your blinker fluid.
That's not a thing.
And your thoracic couplet is totally shot.
Really?
It is.
Look, nothing gets by me. Just like this oil filter. Nothing gets by Purolator.
Hey, if you're using Purolator Boss, you know your stuff.
Oh yeah, protection up to 15,000 miles.
Ooh, but you really should replace your Vesuvius valve.
Stop talking.
Purolator oil, air, and cabin air filters. Nothing gets by us. Available at Advance Auto Parts, Pep Boys, and other fine retailers.
Blog Talk Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you into the first episode of Brawl For All. I am Lance Jenkins, your host, and I'll tell you, folks, we're excited to have you here. We're sorry for the technical issues we had just a moment ago, but we hope you're joining us live right here on blogtalkradio.com. And I do want to note a couple of things. First off, this is Pro Wrestling's newest podcast, and we are excited to bring it to you every Monday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live right here on blogtalkradio.com. If you are listening live, thank you for listening. If you can't listen live tonight, just keep in mind you can always download the podcast on demand on iTunes and other podcast outlets as well. And, of course, you can also watch the live video version if you want to see me. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but nonetheless, if you do, you can go to Rage Wrestling's YouTube channel or the official Brawl For All YouTube channel and watch the video version. Again, I'm Lance Jenkins, and I am the voice of Rage Wrestling, and I am joined tonight by the lead pro wrestling analyst for Brawl For All, Stevie Fly. Stevie Fly, are you with us?
Yes, sir. How are you, Mr. Lance?
Oh, I'm doing okay, Stevie. Glad to have you on the show. I'll tell you, I'm sorry about the technical issues, but we're live. We're live for the very first time. I know you're excited.
We got all the bugs out now, so we're ready to roll now.
We are ready to go. We got an action-packed show tonight, a special 90-minute edition. Even though we got kicked off late, we're still going to run 90 minutes, if it's all right with you, Stevie.
All right, no problem here, bud. You know, I could talk all night.
Good deal. We can talk about pro wrestling all night, that's for sure. But I'll tell you, we really do have a good show planned tonight, folks. I don't think it's any secret that last night the WWE put on Clash of Champions, their Raw pay-per-view. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight, and we will also have a very special guest here tonight. We're getting started a little late, so hopefully he'll call in a little bit later. But nonetheless, we're going to take him when he does because he is the biggest part of tonight's show. Folks, the Pain Train Preston Quinn. Many of you may have met him at Rage Wrestling or seen him wrestle Dirty Money at Rage Wrestling's event back in on August the 27th if you were in Lasker, North Carolina. But I'll tell you, he actually is fresh off his Ring of Honor debut this past weekend in Duluth, Georgia. He'll be joining us later tonight as well. Before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about me, and I'll let Stevie do the very same thing. First and foremost, again, I've been a pro wrestling fan for all my life, really. And if you're looking at the video version, you can see my studio desk here, and you can see these old wrestling action figures I had back from the day. And I mean, you can tell I've been a fan for a long time because I've got Old Sting action figure up here, and I hadn't seen these guys in a long time. I pulled them out of the box just the other day. I thought they looked good on the desk. But I'll tell you, I've been a fan for a long time. My first wrestling event was WCW Thunder in 1998. You remember Thunder, don't you, Stevie?
Definitely remember Thursday Night Thunder.
That's right, Thursday night.
Sometimes was preempted to Wednesday Night Thunder because of ball games, but yeah, it was.
That's right.
That was back when, you know, you had Nitro and Thunder. You had wrestling 3 or 4 times a week then.
That's right. That's exactly. I remember that, and that was when the Monday Night Wars were fresh, and that was, I would say, one of the biggest, one of the heydays of the wrestling business. There's no doubt about that. But I will say that I've been a fan for a long time, and but I'm not going to make any bones about it. And I'll say this: I have it's ever since I've become a part of Rage Wrestling, which is large part is due to this gentleman joining me, Stevie Fly. He asked me to be the ring announcer for a Rage Wrestling event in Lasker, and it was a dream come true for a kid like me who takes life real seriously and got a chance to have fun one night. But it's one thing led into another, and Stevie and I are doing a podcast now for the wrestling business. So, and, of course, you know, we're both very involved with Rage Wrestling. In fact, I remember on July 31st of this year, I said a prayer that night. I said, Lord, please show me something that I can do for you, that I can be passionate about. And the next morning, I already knew I was going to be the ring announcer, but the next morning I got a call, my very first call from promoter of Rage Wrestling, Charles Jones, and the rest is history. And I'll tell you, it's been a dream come true. Here we are on this podcast, but I don't want to talk about myself much. I want to introduce to you our lead pro wrestling analyst and give him a chance to tell you a little bit about him, Mr. Stevie Fly. Take it away.
Well, I'm going to show my age a little bit. I'll go back a little bit further than Lance. I go back to when I became a wrestling fan in '85. That was when the Crockett territory was hot. It was not pretty much your Monday Night Wars. It was pretty much Saturday afternoon wars. You had the NWA, you had the Ric Flairs, the Dusty Rhodes, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Road Warriors. Those were the guys that got me involved in wrestling and got me a love for wrestling. My first ever event was in August of 1986 at the Dorton Arena. The main event was the Rock and Roll Express and Magnum TA against the Andersons and Tully Blanchard. And you talk about the first match I ever saw was a jobber named Thunderfoot versus a guy named Joel Deaton. And if you don't think I was nervous when they came out there, it was just, but I was hooked. From that point on, I was hooked. And, you know, I've been watching it ever since. And, you know, I do prefer a lot of the older stuff, the Crockett years up until what the product is now, but I still enjoy it. I think, you know, you're going to get something kind of Lance's view because he started a little bit later than I did, and kind of my view from an older wrestling fan's perspective. But, you know, we're going to have a good time with this. And like Lance said, I'm involved with Rage Wrestling. Mr. Charles Jones came to me with a chance to do something like this, something I've always wanted to do, is be involved in the wrestling business. And from there, I knew that Lance was the perfect ring announcer. As soon as we started talking, I said, if you don't have a ring announcer, I know exactly who to call. I knew Lance was a wrestling fan, and he has not let us down. He did a great job at the first event, and looking forward to doing a lot more with him. And, you know, he talks about how I looked out for him and made his dream come true. Well, doing a podcast is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and when he asked me, I jumped at the chance. So I think we kind of looked out for each other on this.
Well, I'm glad to have you, Steve. I thank you for the way you feel about me doing the in-ring announcing, but I couldn't find anybody better to do this. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Like I said, I could talk about this stuff all night.
Well, good. Well, we might just do that because in just a moment here, we'll be joined by the Pain Train Preston Quinn. I think I've already talked a little bit about him this evening, but the Pain Train Preston Quinn and I met in an interview not too long ago. I'm sure you remember this, Stevie. He is preparing for a match against fellow Ring of Honor star Caprice Coleman. And, of course, Caprice Coleman has been in Ring of Honor for some time, and he will be at the October 8th event in Lasker, North Carolina for Rage Wrestling. And the two of them will highlight the first round. And I'm going to tell you, Stevie, I don't think that area has seen the quality match they're going to see that night between those two.
Well, I mean, no, I don't think by any means. If you look at the quality of the roster that we have in this right now, and these are a lot of people haven't heard of these guys, but these are a lot of up-and-coming guys like a Caprice Coleman, like Preston Quinn, like a Dirty Money, guys that you will probably see on Monday night or Thursday night or Saturday afternoon or Ring of Honor. I mean, these guys can make it big. They have the talent. I saw that the last Rage event, at the first Rage event in Northeast. There's a lot of talent on this roster, and Caprice Coleman is just adding to it now.
You know, while we're on that, and in anticipation of Preston joining us, do want to talk a little bit about this upcoming event. I mean, you know, August 27th was a show. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
World Tag Team Championships were decided. Of course, Mayhem Incorporated, a team of Gluteus Maximus and Benjamin Banks, walked away with that one. But I'll tell you, you know, in all honesty, I don't think that – I mean, it was great talent there. It was great wrestling. But I think from the very start, the crowd was hot. It was just an all-around great event. And I'm going to tell you, folks, if you have not been to this and you live in the Northampton, Hertford, Halifax County area of North Carolina, you need to go to this show because, I mean, for the price and the quality of wrestling you're going to get, I think it's $10 for adults at this October 8th show. But honestly, it is fantastic wrestling, and I don't think the fans were slighted anything. But, folks, we're actually getting ready to welcome Preston Quinn to the show. He's going to be joining us here in just a moment. We'll check in with him now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the Pain Train Preston Quinn. Preston, how you doing today?
Hey, how you doing, gentlemen?
How are you, Preston?
Okay. Glad to have you on the show. Glad to have you on the show. I know you're coming fresh off the start, your debut match in Duluth, Georgia, I believe it was, with Ring of Honor. That had to be an exciting weekend for you.
Yeah, big one. It was a big one for sure. It's the first of many, so look forward to it.
Well, tell us a little bit about the match. Who was involved? Who the match was? What the outcome?
Originally, it was slated to be myself against Joseph Agal. He used to wrestle as Joe Black a lot in North Carolina, Mid-Atlantic area. They last minute got changed up to a tag team match. With a gentleman named Matt Sells, and we were against Joe and a kid named Gladiator Jeremiah, who used to wrestle as Slim J out in NWA Anarchy.
Gotcha. Sounds like it was exciting week. I was kind of following the whole thing on social media, and you got to tell us, how did you get connected with Ring of Honor? I mean, obviously, we saw you wrestle August 27th. We know you're good enough. We're just wondering what happened and how the process started to get involved with Ring of Honor.
I was wrestling for Fusion, and they were booking me against a lot of really talented guys. Got Adam Pierce and Bob Evans and you know, just Mike Bennett. A lot of the talented guys that are just further along than I am. You know, I didn't make strides to move up in wrestling because I have two daughters that I have to raise. And now that they're older, 15 and 11, at least somewhat older, I'm allowed more time to be on the road and to try to go after this before I become too old to do it. And so, you know, I wrestled Bob Evans a couple of times, and he just started telling everybody. He was like, this is the best guy you have never heard of. Absolutely. He just went around and just sung my praises to everybody. And people started listening. Bob begged me. He said, Ring of Honor is not – it's not what you think it is. Keep an open mind. Please, you know, come up here and let them see. So a couple of years ago I did. I went to a dojo. They loved me. Everything seemed like it was going to progress pretty good, and I was in a match against a gentleman named Congo. He's a 350-pounder, and I attempted to give him an electric chair, and my left leg gave out, and I ended up sitting down with him on my shoulders, and it crushed my C4 and my C5 together and messed up a disc in my neck. And so for the last couple of years, lifting heavy wasn't an option. So if I wasn't in the shape I wanted to be in, I wasn't going to call him back. So I did. And the injury finally got better enough that I could lift heavy and get back on a regimen. I got bigger. I got back up to 275 pounds. So I called Kevin Kelly. I said, Kevin, I'm ready to come back up. So he made room for me at the dojo in July. I went up there this time. Full-blown Pain Train Preston Quinn character with, the satin ring jacket, the towel around my neck. I gave them the whole deal, and they loved it. They said they felt like that was something that was needed in their company. That's where I'm at now.
Well, I
yeah.
can tell you firsthand, the match you had at our last Rage event with Dirty Money was the match of the night. Both you guys put on a great show, but watching you, and I know we talked about this a little earlier today, I'm seeing things of Arn Anderson. Is that something you put in your repertoire? Is that something you meant to do, or is that something that just comes from, naturally?
A combination. I'm naturally left-handed, so that I have in common with Arn.
Right.
I've always, ever since I can remember, enjoyed doing the spine buster. And the
spine
way that he
buster,
does
yeah.
it. Yes. So I've used the spine buster forever. And obviously I'm a huge fan of Arn Anderson. He's not my only influence, but I am a huge fan of his. And any time you talk about targeting a body part and taking apart one part of the body, you can only speak the Anderson name. There's nobody that does it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed that. I noticed that night when you fought Dirty Money. You worked on his arm, and you worked on it a lot. And that's another, just your appearance, you look like you could be an Anderson. But watching you in the ring, like working on one body part and some of your mannerisms, it really reminded me of Arn. And that's a huge compliment because he's probably one of the greatest workers I've ever seen.
Completely agree. Completely.
Well, I'll tell you, there's no doubt. I kind of noticed the same thing in some of the videos I saw. And, in fact, talking about videos, I think, Stevie, we did a little research. And we did a little research. It appeared to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stevie, that the Pain Train appeared in some capacity on Monday Night Raw at one point in 2003.
2003, I believe.
Yeah, that did.
Tell us about that experience. Yeah.
Yeah. How did that come about?
Basically, they called the promoter in Virginia at the time. Rick O'Brien was the NWA promoter in Virginia. I was the heavyweight champion, and probably a guy that he knew if he sent up to the big boys, I wouldn't do anything to embarrass him.
Right.
So I got there, and they told me that they wanted me and Stacy Keebler to do this thing during a match with Test and Jericho, and once I got Stacy's attention, that it was going to piss Test off, and Test was going to pull me from out of the crowd and kind of pull me around outside the ring, and give me an appearance that was a fan getting beat up.
Right.
So that was my first experience with Vince McMahon's company.
Okay. Now, talking about you're talking about your time in Virginia, you big time in the VCW. Now, if I'm correct, you wrestled in VCW. You wrestled times against beautiful Bobby Eaton. Tell us a little bit about how that was. I mean, because you talk about Arn Anderson being such a great worker. There's another one that's probably one of the most underrated workers of all time that really, tag team wise, he got the credit, but I think single wise, if he had went out of his own a little bit more than he did, he could have really, contended for a world title. And he had some matches with Flair a time or two, but I think he could have really been seriously contending for a title. Tell us how it was to work with somebody like Beautiful Bobby.
Well, a funny story before I go into that is I was when I was between 12, 13 years old, I was playing basketball in a league. And anybody that made the All-Stars, they made you like a card out of your picture, and on the back of the card it had your stats on there and different things about you. Well, on the back of my card at 12 or 13 years old, it said main influences, and on there it says Ric Flair and Bobby Eaton.
That's great.
So that'll tell you what it meant to me to be able to wrestle him.
And not only did you wrestle him, but you actually beat him a few times. Am I correct?
I've been back and forth with him. He's hit me with the Alabama Jam, which was one of the high points of my career, being able to see him come down with that move. But I'm left-handed, but I throw similar punches to Bobby. He's a righty, but so we were able to tag, kind of slug at each other back and forth, And both of us like to use, and because of his influence on me, I like to use the swinging neck breaker. I like to use the leg drop from the top rope.
Right.
But of course, when I wrestled him, I didn't do any of those things. I drop a similar elbow drop to him. I mean, and if I'm in a tag team, I wrestled it's so much Midnight Express, unless I'm targeting a body part, and then it's going Anderson.
Right. So you've pretty much got the best of both worlds when it comes to tag team. You got Beautiful Bobby, you got Arn Anderson influence there. That's a good combination for a tag team right there.
I agree. Two best tag wrestlers in history.
Exactly. They can make anybody. You know, Arn Anderson had Zbyszko, he had Ole, he had Tully. I mean, the list goes on. And
he had Bobby for a while in the Dangerous Alliance.
Exactly. And they held the tag belts. I got a quick question for you. Your preference here, Midnight Express with Eaton and Lane or Eaton and Condrey?
Ooh.
That's a tough one,
man. I think they had better matches with Eaton and Lane because of the tag cohesion. And wrestling was developing differently at that time, so you were getting a lot more double team spots, more double team moves, tandem type stuff, the drop toe elbow, the Vegematic, the flapjacks. Eaton and Condrey both were better, I thought better psychology tag team, but Eaton and Lane had flashier double team moves to kind of. So I felt like their matches with the Fantastics and the Rock and Rolls and like the Southern Boys and stuff like that. I felt like those matches were probably the best ones.
I tell you, one of the most underrated matches you'll ever see: Great American Bash, 1990, Midnight Express versus the Southern Boys. That match went back and forth so much, and it kept you on the edge of your seat. But you know, anytime you talk about Midnight, you talk about Rock and Roll Express, and you know, I think. I'm gonna go with Eaton and Lane as far as what I thought. Just the same reason you said that their moves were flashier. Condrey just had more of a brawler to me, but Lane technically was a better wrestler than Condrey to me.
But I'll tell you, I agree. And I'll tell you that. You just said 1990. I'm sitting here thinking I was a fresh-faced 3-year-old at that point.
I told you, Lance, I'm going to show my age on this.
But that's all right. No, because I'll tell you, those were the glory days. There's no doubt you can go back now and watch all the videos from that back then, and I mean they were much of the glory days of wrestling, and not that it still isn't, because wrestling still is a big deal, but. That was it was a day, when Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant, and that was one of the biggest deals in sports, and there's no doubt about that. So, I mean, that's a time that I love, but I have to kind of reflect on as opposed to I did not live it. Let's put it that way. But look, let me ask you this, Preston. I think you had some experience also in TNA briefly, kind of in the early days. Is that right? Yeah.
Phil Behrens brought me in. They had me wrestle Eric Watts because at the time I was bigger than everybody else on the roster pretty much. And Watts was 6'4", 6'5". So they had me wrestle Watts, and a lot of people crapped on Watts and whatnot. I thought I had a decent match with him. He kind of relied heavily on me to come up with everything. So I understand where people were coming from, but I was just happy to be there, and they wanted me to come back, but again, the travel schedule. At that time, I think that might have been 2005-ish.
Right.
Again, my daughters were very young then, and there was no way I was going to be on the road that often and be away from them. It just, especially a dad not around their daughters, I think it's just a recipe for disaster. So I wasn't going to let wrestling stand in the way of that.
Well, that's pretty admirable because not everybody makes that choice, and I'll tell you that is something to be said for that. We got a real class act, folks. If you're just joining us, the Pain Train Preston Quinn, fresh off his Ring of Honor debut, is with us live. And I want to ask you this, too. You've got a big match coming up, actually, at our promotion, Rage Wrestling, on October 8th. It is the highlight match of the first round, and it is against fellow Ring of Honor star Caprice Coleman. Now, you had pretty harsh words for him when I interviewed you last time, and I'm assuming nothing's changed. Is that right?
No, not at all.
You did.
No,
did you
the
happen?
same thing I said before. If you haven't heard the interview, I'll rip his arm off and beat him with it to advance in that tournament.
Well,
Did you happen to bump into Caprice this weekend?
I actually saw him. I saw him at Ring of Honor. He was wrestling with the Cabinet.
Right.
You know, they're working to make wrestling great again. So I hear. So, we'll see how much he helps the Cabinet with his arm in a sling.
Make wrestling great.
Yeah.
Well,
what did my man Arn Anderson say? A three-legged table is useless.
That's right. That's very true.
I actually, to get myself in the mood for this, I watched some of Arn's greatest interviews, and one of them was like, "I'm not a man to come out here and toot my own horn, but toot, toot."
One of my favorite lines, buddy. I can't wait to steal that one.
You need to use that one in the next interview. Toot, toot. I love it. You got to love that guy.
Well, I'll tell you, that interview had over 2,000 views in 15 hours, I think it was.
Yep.
The
Pain Train is ratings, gentlemen.
Do what?
Exactly.
I said the Pain Train is ratings, gentlemen.
Well, it sounds that way. That's the highest viewed video we've had so far. So it certainly sounds that way. I actually went to a gathering the other night, and I hadn't seen these people in 2 years. And I don't even know if they're big wrestling fans, but they're coming out to see you next time because all they said the whole night was the Pain Train Preston Quinn. And I'm like, I don't even know if y'all know who he is, but they do now because they've seen that. I'll say that promo was good. I will give you that. That was the best one that we cut the whole night. I mean, you didn't mince words about it. It doesn't sound like you're doing it now. Folks, want to let everybody know, too, Caprice Coleman is coming to Alaska, North Carolina, but he's got a big roadblock ahead of him. The Pain Train Preston Quinn going to be fighting him the first round October 8th at the Rage Wrestling event. But anyway, let's get back to you. Talking about your career, I know we've talked a little bit about what you did this past weekend, but tell us this. I mean, where do you see yourself headed? What's the plan moving forward? It sounds like you're moving forward, that's for sure. Where do you see yourself, 2 to 5 years from now in the wrestling business?
Well, at my humble age of 40, and 5 years being 45 is going to depend a lot on my how my body continues to hold up at the level that it's at. So far, so good. Knock on wood. But, right now, just I've gotten my foot in the door in a bigger company. I was told to get my passport ready, if that means anything.
Right.
Fantastic.
So, I'm looking international. I'm looking at some of the bigger independent wrestling companies and bigger paychecks. Plan on being fully sustainable on a wrestling career. And just working with the business and working to better the business as a whole with the younger guys and the companies that I wrestle for. I want to make those companies better by being there. I want to be a guy that they know when they pay him the money that he's going to come in, he's going to put a butt every 18 inches, and the guy he's going to wrestle against is going to have the best match of his life.
Well, you talk about going international now. I saw a picture of you backstage at Ring of Honor with a guy that I think is a lot of people that are in this area don't realize who he is, but Jushin Thunder Liger, one of the all-time great wrestlers, in my opinion, of all time. But in Japan, he's a legend. But over here, he's known, but not your diehard wrestling fans know who he is. Obviously, is Japan something that you're talking about when you're talking about going international?
Absolutely. Gordy and Williams made a killing over there. Brody, Arn and Barry, all those guys went over there and did very well. And my style fits very, very much into the heavyweight Japanese style.
Well,
I don't think there would be any problem with a cohesion between me and my Japanese opponent.
Well, you've got, Ring of Honor has the Bullet Club, some of the Bullet Club. You talk about the Young Bucks, you talk about Adam Cole. You think, would Preston Quinn be involved in the Bullet Club?
I think I'd be involved in whipping their backsides.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's, we talk about.
I think there's already enough of them. I think there's already enough of them and not enough opposition. You put together guys like me, Steve Carino, C.W. Anderson, Extreme Horsemen, guys know what we're doing. We go in there and we break the Young Bucks in half. Take Adam Cole out to the woodshed a couple of times.
Who is okay in Ring of Honor right now? Obviously, you'd love to work with Carino and Anderson, and I think you would fit good. Extreme Horseman is that you would fit in great with
John
that.
Schuyler's another one that they have in the Extreme Horseman. I'd love to work with.
Who is somebody single-wise that you would like to have a program with right now? If you could pick anybody on there, I know, Adam Cole's got the heavyweight belt, but who is anybody on that roster that you'd like to have a program with to start off with?
Bobby Fish.
Right.
Television champion Bobby Fish.
Television champion, yeah.
Really enjoy his work, his submission style. I think he and I would tangle up pretty good.
I think that would be a good matchup there, and that would be an awesome match. We talked earlier, me and you talked earlier today about how Ring of Honor is coming up. The TV's coming up with it. It's on syndication right now, and it could be, who knows, if it keeps going like this, maybe they'll get a night or primetime slot, but you've got tag team. The tag team scene is pretty awesome right now. You got the Young Bucks, you got Addiction, you got the Motor Cities guys, so you're good there. But and it seems like, you got the Briscoes that tag from time to time, but they're more singles now. But it seems like the singles is now catching up with the tag, and I really think Ring of Honor is going to make a big jump in this next year. And it's all about what's going to make the product even better today is about competition. When WWE doesn't have any competition, the product is not really good. I mean, it's all right, but it's better when you've got competition up there. And I'm all about seeing Ring of Honor, TNA compete with WWE because Ring of Honor does more. They're more about like what the Crockett era used to have. They're more about the wrestling, not the flash. They're more about the wrestling. That's what I really enjoy more than anything.
I agree. I think the way that Vince McMahon's strategy is anybody that starts to become such a personality that it looks like it's going to start blowing gates open for Ring of Honor, he takes it. Danielson and Owens and Tyler Black and anybody that just seems like they just get an offer they can't refuse and they go up top. And nobody's blaming them obviously for going for the money and wrestling for
definitely not.
But it's just that's how Vince holds on to his monopoly. I mean, when WCW got brought out, dude, it crushed me. Because all my life growing up in Virginia, I saw all wrestling, but WCW, NWA to WCW, that's exactly where I wanted to be. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I didn't want to wrestle Earthquake. I didn't want to wrestle Avalanche. I didn't want to wrestle the Beverly Brothers. I wanted to wrestle the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Arn and Tully, Ric Flair, those Lex Luger, any of them.
Well, that's exactly how I felt. Like I said, my first memories of wrestling was 11:30 on Saturday night watching Bob Caudle and Johnny Weaver call it, and 12 o'clock watching Tony Schiavone and David Crockett call, and I was hooked on that because it was it was intense, it was wrestling, and I mean I did enjoy WWF back then, but I'm always to this day, and I still will be, a Crockett guy. A WCW guy, but it was like I was the same way. It crushed me when they got rid of WCW.
Yeah.
Well, the product
and shameless plug. October the 15th, myself and Big Time Mike Booth are reforming the Old School Empire and taking on the Rock and Roll Express in New Kent, Virginia, for the vacant Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championship.
Now
I saw that actually on I don't know what social medium that was, but and when is that again?
Championship Wrestling. That is October the 15th.
October the 15th.
Is this the first time you went against the Rock and Roll Express? Is this the first time you
wrestled Ricky Morton? I've never wrestled Robert Gibson.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've tagged with Ricky Morton.
So that's got to be kind of a dream come true for you, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because we're Andersons, you know. We wrestle like Andersons, so to be able to go against the Rock and Roll Express for us is just, that's huge.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you this question: was Ricky Morton the greatest seller of all time?
No, Ricky Steamboat is. Steamboat,
okay.
Steamboat, Morton is right on his heels as far as selling goes.
Right,
I'm telling
you. Yeah, because you listen to some of the stories, and Morton, that Cornette tells, and Morton had these people in certain audiences so keyed up about how he was getting beat up sometimes that they were, Midnight Express were lucky to get out of there alive. So, I'll have to say Steamboat. Steamboat sold a whole lot, not a whole lot more. Like I'd say Morton was right on his heels too.
All right, folks, if you're just joining us, we're with the Pain Train Preston Quinn, fresh off his Ring of Honor debut, and he's here live with us on Brawl For All, weekly pro wrestling podcast. Of course, on October the 15th, I think you said you're reforming the old Empire and going to be going against the Rock and Roll Express. Where's that again? New Kent, you said?
New Kent, Virginia. Yep, New Kent High School.
New Kent High School.
They're gonna have the Rock and Rolls are gonna be there. I know they got like an autograph thing. They got the Masked Superstar is gonna be there. Beautiful Bobby Eaton's gonna be there.
Wow.
They got quite a line up there to sign autographs.
Well, speaking of the Masked Superstar, didn't you do a stint with teaming up with him as the Masked Superstars?
I was Masked Superstar number 2, and again, like if you go by my main influences, he is one of them. Ric Flair, Bobby Eaton, Masked Superstar, Arn Anderson, and Barry Windham, if I could name 5, would probably kind of round me out. But yes, Bill Eadie, the Masked Superstar, is where I get a lot of my mat wrestling aggressiveness, snapmares, and the way that I do chin locks, different things like that come from him. When I do submissions that's not to a body part, usually the Cobra Clutch, because of him.
Right.
And a lot of my clotheslines, a lot of times I'll do a sit-out clothesline because of him. And I just thought him and the Super Destroyer were fantastic. I love Superstar. I liked when he was in Demolition, but I love Masked Superstar.
That's what I was getting ready to say. A lot of people don't realize, especially some of the younger guys don't realize who Masked Superstar was, that he went on to be one half of Demolition, probably one of the greatest tag teams WWF ever had. They were first considered Road Warrior ripoffs, which and I know Vince was trying to get his own Road Warriors, but they quickly made a name for themselves and kind of got away from the whole Road Warrior ripoff until the Road Warriors came to WWF.
Yep, and the Demolition was they were better psychology wrestlers than the Road Warriors were. The Road Warriors were, just over-the-top charisma and in your face, but Demolition overall, you were going to get better matches out of Demolition.
All right, and I think what really, and I'm not sure, I've heard there was injuries, but when you bring they brought the third member of Crush, the third member of Demolition, I thought that kind of took away from Demolition there, and then it wasn't long after that was the end of Demolition.
Yeah, they thought Bill Eadie had a heart attack. But he actually had an allergic reaction to crayfish.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
I'm glad you
so Vince
was
scared
now.
at that point and threw Crush in there, and then him and Bill had somewhat of a falling out, and then kind of went downhill from there.
All right, folks, the Pain Train Preston Quinn. We want to thanks for joining us tonight. I'm not even sure if you know this, but this is our pilot episode, and we're bringing on a lot of big talent here in the next few weeks, but I don't think we could have kicked it off with anybody stronger. Fresh off his Ring of Honor debut, the Pain Train Preston Quinn, going to be going against the Rock and Roll Express on October the 15th in New Kent, Virginia. Before that, the week before, he'll be at Rage Wrestling's World Championship Tournament. He'll be going head-to-head with Caprice Coleman on October 8th in Lasker. The Pain Train, we're glad to have you tonight. We appreciate you joining us. You got anything else you want to say before you go?
I can run down where my appearances are going to be at.
Yeah, please.
I got, like you said, Caprice Coleman on October the 8th. Rock and Roll Express, October the 15th in New Kent, Virginia. October the 22nd, I'll be wrestling in York County, Virginia for Fusion Wrestling. October the 28th, I'll be in Schubert, North Carolina for for my debut with Steve Carino's company, PWF.
Wow.
And then October the 29th will be my first television taping in Baltimore, Maryland for Ring of Honor. So.
And what date is that Baltimore appearance?
Baltimore is October the 28th, the first TV taping. I'll be there for 4 weeks of television, and then I'll be in Philadelphia December the 4th for the next TV taping for Ring of Honor. So they look like they've got some plans for me.
Yeah, that definitely looks that way. And I want to say
they're
this.
doing you 4 weeks. They've got plans for you.
I want to tell you this, too. You said October the 29th in Hubert, North Carolina. I'm here to tell you
that's
that
October
I live
the
about
28th.
20 minutes from there, and I will see you that night.
October the 28th is Hubert, North Carolina. That's
October
a Friday
28th.
night.
I'm sorry, Friday night, October 28th. Well,
there will be I will be heavily involved with some stuff going on there. It's going to be a big deal that night. That night's going to leave some ramifications for my career. So,
wow.
I'd like for people to see that.
Well, I will be there. I will be there. Yeah, because I live 20 minutes from Hubert, North Carolina. So I will definitely be there Friday, October 28th. And I'm very familiar with Steve Carino's promotion. So we'll look forward to seeing you there. The Pain Train Preston Quinn, thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it here on Brawl For All.
All right. Have a good night, gentlemen.
All right, you too. Good luck, buddy.
All right, bye.
That was the Pain Train Preston Quinn, and we were happy to have him on air tonight. I'll tell you, he has quite the story in the wrestling business. I mean, he's a guy who has been around for really quite some time, but it's odd because a lot of people, and particularly at his age, are typically beginning to transition kind of downward in their career, where he's taking a complete opposite path. He's heading up.
He's going upward. I mean, when I did my research on him, couldn't believe he debuted in 1996. So that kind of took me by surprise because I figured he was, he does not look like a 40-year-old. Definitely does not look like he's in his 40s. He looks like an up-and-comer. And I think, just like you said, he's going the opposite of down. He's definitely going up. He's getting his foot in the door at Ring of Honor. And it sounds like when you got Ring of Honor willing to do 4 weeks of TV for you, it sounds like they've got big plans for you.
Well, it sounds like he's going to do 4 weeks in Maryland, and it sounds like just after that he's going to do another I'm assuming another taping of however long, but some capacity in Philly.
Another taping there, so that's at least 5 tapings there. That's pretty awesome news for him. I think he's definitely going in the right direction, and people need to keep an eye on Ring of Honor Wrestling on TV. You'll definitely see the Pain Train.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. You guys were talking about how back in before 2001, WWF at the time was considerably a better product, and then when WCW got bought out, it was still some time until we saw TNA come around, or the NWA TNA promotion that eventually became TNA, that eventually became Impact Wrestling, and apparently eventually might become something else here soon. But it's been some time since we've been in an era where there was solid competition, and you've got to wonder. You got to kind of wonder what that's going to do to the product. Yeah,
you're looking about 15 years without. TNA has been nice, but it hadn't really competed. They got some of the stars, and I was kind of disappointed because they had some talent there, which was some of the older talent. But you had a Kurt Angle, you had a Sting, and then you had the younger talent that they brought in there. You had an AJ Styles, you had Samoa Joe. Then they came in with Kevin Nash. They had Christian. Beer Money. Probably one of the most underrated tag teams you would ever see with Bobby Roode and James Storm.
They were impressive. James Storm. Yeah.
I really think that WWE kind of dropped the ball when they didn't get they got Bobby Roode for NXT now, but James Storm kind of flirted with it, but I think he came back home to TNA. I don't know what the problem was, whether it was his decision or their decision, but I think Vince has never been a big tag team fan. They had their tag teams back in the mid '80s, but he got away from it. Said he wasn't a big fan of it. But I think tag team there's a place for big time tag team wrestling, and a lot of people love to see that. you think about WCW, they had the Steiners, the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Arn and Tully, even go back to Rude and Fernandez, stuff like that. You know, they had tag team wrestling. That made a big difference. But I think if Vince would bring back tag team, the product would get a whole lot better.
Yeah, I agree, because even recently, you see that. I mean, the tag team division, and they keep telling us they're trying to pop it up. I mean, a lot of times they'll cut this promo and say, "Hey, we're trying to really, pump up the tag team division." But we're really, I mean, I'll be quite frank, WWE has left us kind of disappointed every time they've said that. And these other promotions that are pushing tag team wrestling, which I think is some of the most exciting matches you'll ever see. It's just really disappointing to see the lead promotion in the world today kind of dropping the ball on the tag team division.
And the thing is, when they kind of go in that direction and build up a tag team and build them up, eventually they're gonna break them up. And it's not like it was in the old days where the Midnight Express never broke up. The Rock and Roll Express had their little thing when Robert Gibson got hurt when they broke up. But these guys they get a big 6-month push, and it's almost like, well, we're gonna have to break them up. But one of the most disappointing things for me was when they broke the Steiners up. I was a big Steiner fan, and when they broke the Steiners up and Scott went to NWO, that was a big disappointment for me, because I just thought they were so great together. One of the best of all time.
Well, it's a fairly new concept, kind of like you just said. I mean, they never split up some of these tag teams, but even now, it seems like that every tag team to split up, to even look at the Shield and that faction that they had back in just a few years ago. I mean, it was a really solid faction. It was a really good faction. But at the end of the day, they split it up, and every single one of those stars became somebody, and they're all mid to high, mid card to main event right now at the worst. And you kind of look at those guys and you think that the mentality that WWE has always seemed to have, at least Vince McMahon, has always had this mentality that once the tag team propels somebody up high enough to be a single star, then break it up, because that's the whole point. When really, I think the fans kind of like the tag team division to stay as hot as it is.
Well, we say he's dropped the ball on a lot of things, on a lot of, breaking up tag teams, but I have to give him credit. I would have never thought, if you broke the Rockers up, that either one of them would have been the single star that Shawn Michaels was. Probably one of the greatest workers of all time. And, if he'd have stayed in the Rockers, who knows what would have happened. But Vince knew it was time for him to be a singles wrestler, and you look at what it is. But that's not always going to work with a tag team.
You're right.
We sit here and talk about it, and I look at I'm thinking about it now. The Usos, they've been together for a while. But you're talking about the Shield. After last night, you realize all three members have held a world championship and the U.S. championship and the tag team championship. Well, Ambrose didn't really have the tag team championship, but they've held the WWE title and the U.S. title now. So, you can't – Vince does know his stuff, but I think he's kind of dropping the ball on this tag team.
Yeah, but you made a fine point about Shawn Michaels. I mean, that was one of the most controversial, probably most memorable split-ups of all time.
Put him through the glass window, that was...
Oh, yeah, we'll never forget that. Now, see, I didn't watch wrestling at that time, but I remember, I can even remember that, how iconic that was, just from watching, past videos, the video library. But I'll tell you that's a fine example there. And there's no doubt that Vince knows the business better than me, and there's certainly no doubt that Vince has been very successful in splitting up some tag teams and making them somebody. But you just got to think that I think the fans in general really like the tag team division, and I know I do, and it's just nice to see when tag teams kind of are famous for being tag teams as opposed to that being kind of the first step.
Exactly.
Well,
I'm a big fan of tag team wrestling.
Oh, yeah, me too. And we want to talk a little bit about Clash of Champions last night, where because of our technical issues we had earlier, we got a little diverted, but we were happy to have the Pain Train Preston Quinn join us tonight. If you didn't get to hear his interview live, you definitely want to download this podcast later on. But let's get on Clash of Champions last night. The first Raw exclusive pay-per-view since they really took this new direction and split up the brands again. But matter of fact, before we get on Clash of Champions, how do you feel about this new brand split in WWE? They've done this before, and here they are back at it again.
Well, I think it got to a point where you had all this talent. You really didn't – there was a lot of guys that could compete for world titles but weren't able to get a push. You know, it comes a time, you know, sometimes, and I know this is before your time, back in the day with NWA had the World Heavyweight title. They had the television title. They had the U.S. belt. They had a national belt. They had a Mid-Atlantic belt. You had tag team belts. You had the national tag team belts. You had U.S. tag belts. That's a little too much. And I think at a time when WWE had a little too much, but it got to a point where you got guys sitting back there on the back burner like a Dolph Ziggler, you know, that really, you know, has come a long way since being a member of the Spirit Squad. Guy that can contend for a belt. You know, there was just a log jam, and I think it was probably the best move they could make. You know, you got NXT feeding into that too. You've got a guy like AJ Styles coming over. You know, you had all of this talent. It's kind of like when you have the Dream Team basketball. There's 5 guys that are potential or will all Hall of Famers. There's just not enough balls to spread around for everybody. And with this, you know, I think Vince and Triple H kind of figured, well, we need to have some belts for these guys to contend for, so let's split the brand up again. I think it was a great move, honestly, because these guys were getting really, really frustrated with not being able to contend for a title or either not getting the push that they deserve, and now you've got 2 different brands where you can split them up, and guys are getting a push that really deserve it now.
Well, I'm kind of with you because the last time they split the brand up, I thought it became pretty stale, to be honest. I mean, it just seemed like every year was the draft, and it really didn't develop anything exciting. So this year, on the 19th of July, they did the draft. And for the first time in a very long time, I was actually excited about WWE. But more importantly, I don't remember the last time that I actively watched an entire episode of SmackDown until this new split in the brands. And I'll tell you, I mean, SmackDown's a quality show now. It's not the second tier show. It's truly competing with Raw. And I think you're right. You've got a guy like Dolph Ziggler, who I've long felt like should have had a shot at a long run with the world title. I mean, he is the future of wrestling. Wrestling is not about the big boys who weigh 500 pounds anymore. It's about the fit, athletic, fast, high-flying guys just as much as it is anybody else. And I don't think there's a lot of hard workers in WWE, but a guy I like watching is Dolph Ziggler. And you look at him, and the guy is just not – I just don't think he's getting, you know, main event status anywhere near enough. And I think this brand split, I hope, will kind of give him the opportunity, kind of like you're saying, because he certainly deserves it.
Well, automatically, as soon as they do the brand split, who is contending for the title, but there's Ziggler getting a shot at Ambrose. He had a couple of shots at Ambrose, and now you look at him, he's got a program going with The Miz, which, you know, there's another guy. Love him or hate him, The Miz is, you know, doesn't work as a babyface. There's some guys that just don't work as a babyface, and
that's right.
Miz is one of those guys. Miz works better as a heel. One of those guys.
And he's a great heel.
He is a great heel. Who would have ever thought the guy from the real world would turn into one of the best heels in WWE? But honestly, you know, last event I went to in Greenville, he fought Cesaro, and there was 5 minutes before the match where he did nothing but berate the crowd, and the crowd was so into it about wanting to see him get beat. He had them on the edge of their seats, and I mean that's a quality heel there, no doubt about it.
Well, talk about Cesaro. That's the guy I like watching too, and he went in a best-of-7 series with Sheamus, and the 7th match Of course, the best of 7 series are going 7 matches. And, of course, last night the 7th match happened at Clash of Champions, and it finishes in a no contest. Stevie, what's the logic behind that?
That right there, I do not understand. That's kind of like what they used to call, and I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, it's kind of like what they used to call the Dusty finish. The Dusty finish, everybody knows who Dusty Rhodes was, the American Dream, father of Cody and Goldust. But Dusty was a booker he was the head booker for the NWA back in the Crockett days. And it was nothing like seeing a championship match, one in particular, Starrcade 87, Road Warriors versus Arn and Tully in Chicago, the Road Warriors' hometown. And the Road Warriors had never won the NWA Tag Team belts, and that was on the line. You look at the match comes down to the end. Of course, referee gets knocked out of the ring. They're brawling in the ring. Tully gets flipped over the top rope, and back then, over the top rope was a disqualification. Well, the referee is not evidently the referee was out of the ring. The Road Warriors keep, another referee comes out, the Road Warriors do their doomsday device on Arn and pin him, and there's a big celebration in the ring. The Road Warriors won the tag belts. Wait a minute, the Dusty finish. The referee outside the ring just happened to see Tully get flipped over the top rope, disqualification. So that's, I don't know what they've got planned as far as the Cesaro Sheamus thing. I know they said the referee called the match. No, I don't think it was. I think it was a work. They said they called it because they were worried one of them was hurt, but I think that was kind of a work because one of the things they built up through this whole best of 7 was how aggressive and how physical they wanted these guys to be. Mick Foley wanted to see that. And what they've got planned for, maybe they'll have the 7th match at the next pay-per-view. I don't know. I hope they don't wait that long because I think that was kind of a disappointment to people watching last night.
Oh yeah, I mean, because that's a match that people have really. I think people have really enjoyed that series because that's something you just don't see a lot of. And I'll tell you, I mean, to pay that much money for a ticket to see an event like that, if that match happens on Raw or SmackDown, I'm pretty irritated if I attended Clash of Champions last night.
Exactly. You want to. They've built this up for however the last month or so, as everything would come to a conclusion at the best of 7 series when that was over. So they leave you hanging again, and I know it's kind of you kind of want to keep people enticed and keep on, but best of 7 series it kind of makes you you're seeing the same thing over and over again. This is where it needs to come. We're going to see something big at the best of 7. The 7th match here is come down to the end, winner takes all, and then you have a no contest. I think they really dropped the ball on that match.
Yeah, now, talking about, I'll tell you, now, I don't want to sound critical, because let me tell you, so you take a step back to the SmackDown pay-per-view that just occurred, WWE Backlash, and I'm here to tell you, I in no way expected Vince McMahon to put the belt on a guy who finished number 1 in the PWI Top 500 Wrestlers just years ago with another promotion. AJ Styles becoming the WWE World Heavyweight Champion at Backlash completely threw me for a loop, and I got to give him credit. That was an experience I did not expect that night. But what happened last night? Well, let's talk about that first. Let's talk about that. AJ Styles wearing the WWE World Heavyweight belt.
Mr. TNA for stuck with TNA all these years, and you look at Vince's track record with bringing guys over like a Flair. When Flair came to WWE the first time, when it was WWF in '91.
That's right.
You had Goldberg. You had, they were the only two that really stuck out that he put the belt on, that came over, that were kind of the champions in WCW. And I think those two, with Goldberg, I think Vince had hit a like you said, there was no competition with WCW then. Goldberg was one of those that had the big contract with Time Warner and was getting paid more money to stay at home till his contract ran out than to go with WWE at the time. So when he brought Goldberg in, I think that was just kind of, put the belt on him. It was kind of just to get a little bit of shot in the arm, and Flair, there was no way when Flair came over that he could not put the belt on Flair. But you look at at Dusty Rhodes. You look at Dusty Rhodes when Dusty Rhodes came over from the old NWA. What did he do to Dusty? He puts polka dots on Dusty and gives him this outlandish music and stuff, and tries his best to make a joke out of Dusty, but Dusty ended up making it work. But totally shocked to see Mr. TNA, AJ Styles, get the belt like he did. That's just something that Vince has tried to stay away from. If anything, he tried to make him, especially in the 80s, he tried to make guys coming over look as ridiculous. I don't know if you're familiar with there's a wrestler that came over from the NWA back in the late 80s who was a really good technical wrestler named Terry Taylor. He turned Terry Taylor into the Red Rooster, made him have a mohawk. He had his long hair like a mullet, but he had the hair in the middle sticking up and had that dyed red, so it looked like a chicken. So that was Vince's forte back then. But I'm like you. A guy asked me the day before, have I got any predictions for Backlash? And I said, well, AJ Styles will definitely not win the belt that night. But that proves to you how much I know.
Well, I'll tell you. You always hear Triple H say it's what's best for business. Well, you can tell me what you want, but Vince McMahon is not always worried about what's best for business, because sometimes Vince just takes it personal. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Nobody can say Vince doesn't have an ego. Vince, and with good reason, he's built this company up. He took it over from his dad and really built it up to a major, major company.
That's right.
But that ego sometimes oversees what's best for business, kind of cancel out what's best for business with Vince. And I think Triple H, being in the ring and being on, he was in WCW. He knows, you got to do what's best for business, especially you don't want it to become stale. And since Triple H has took over, they don't have any competition right now. TNA and Ring of Honor is really coming up. I mean, I can't say enough about Ring of Honor, but
yeah, they are.
Triple H is seeing. We got WCW was on top of the Monday Night Wars at one time. They got a little stale and got a little lackadaisical, and you see where they're at now. So I think Triple H is trying to look out for business and looking out for the future of WWE.
Well, let me chat with you about this a little bit, because, and I got to say, the fact that Vince put AJ Styles over, look, I'm clapping my hands for the guy. I mean, I'm not being critical at all. He made a good move, and I told you before that in our talks, I didn't expect it to happen that quickly, but I kind of expected at some point AJ Styles was going over, but they put him over at Backlash, and I got to give credit where credit's due. But here's something, talking about AJ Styles, that I have just got to ask you. I got into wrestling a long time ago, and I kind of got out of wrestling for a while in the mid-2000s. But I got back into it around 2008 and 9 when The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels went head-to-head in 2 back-to-back WrestleManias, which I do believe are 2 of the greatest matches that have ever been put on, particularly WrestleMania 25. Yeah, the greatest match ever put on in WWE, in wrestling history. But I got back into it really hard about the time that TNA started making this push to bring in those big names you were talking about earlier. And I don't think there's a bigger name in the wrestling business than Hulk Hogan. Hogan, Flair, Nash, all these guys you were talking about earlier came on to TNA back in, I want to say it was I think it was the first January 2010 when all that kicked off. And they made their first television appearances. But I got to tell you, I love these promotions like Ring of Honor that put the focus on up-and-coming stars and make it work. But, Stevie, please tell me, what is TNA doing right now? I mean, they've got the broken Matt Hardy thing working, but other than that,
oh yeah,
what is going on?
With TNA scene, and I was really excited when TNA come along, and I'm really excited. I said, here we go, we're gonna have something different, and it's gonna, everything with Jarrett in charge at the time. This was gonna be the new NWA. It's gonna be like the old days again. But TNA would take one step forward and two steps back. They didn't stick with a lot of and it's still a problem to this day is storylines. They don't stick with storylines. You could have a guy that was a babyface getting ready to get in a monster feud with a heel 1 week, and the next week he's turning heel and teaming up with a guy who was getting ready to get into a big feud with. They've got to stick with storylines better. But like you said, the whole broken Matt Hardy and delete Jeff Hardy is now obsolete. The Leader Decay angle they've got going with the tag team Decay of this and Crazy Steve, they've got that going. And I think anything right now Matt Hardy does with the broken angle is really working enough where Triple H has taken notice, and there's a lot of talk about Matt Hardy bringing his broken character to WWE in the spring when his contract runs out. And it's kind of like about earlier, Vince's whole thing is when he sees somebody or making a big headway in Ring of Honor or TNA that could possibly put them on the map, he just makes them an offer they can't refuse, like we talked about last night. The New York Yankees. The Yankees are kind of not having the best years here lately, but you remember how they were in the 90s and the 2000 era. They were, how many guys did they have that were brought up through the farm system? Derek Jeter was the only one. They see a guy on another team like a Kansas City Royals, and they give him an offer he couldn't refuse. And that's what Vince does here. If he Daniel Bryan, like you said earlier, Kevin Owens, Tyler Black, which is, I believe that's Seth Rollins now. So you look at what Vince does. Vince just said, well, if this is going to be a threat to us, we'll just get rid of that threat by bringing them over to us. And, I would love to see TNA and try to make it work, but I can totally understand that that's what he's been wanting to do, to get back to WWE for a while. But there's one exception that I've seen to the whole Triple H, and if you get into the rumors and the message boards and look a lot, depends on who you believe. There's a tag team in Ring of Honor right now, the Young Bucks.
Oh yeah,
probably one of the most talented tag teams I've seen in a long time. I mean, they're the 2010 era version of the Rock and Roll Express or the Rockers, but they're a lot cockier than those guys. I mean, they got a lot of cockiness to them, but they put on a great match. And a lot of talk in the last year or so about WWE made them an offer. Depends on who you believe. I thought it was funny that the Young Bucks went on Twitter and actually said they had turned down an offer from WWE, and WWE denied it after that. But it just depends on who you believe. But that's the exception to the rule that I've heard the Young Bucks staying and sticking with Ring of Honor for right now at least, and sticking with, they do a lot of New Japan wrestling too, or IWGP wrestling, excuse me. They do that. So, that's the exception to the rule so far with the Evil Empire theory that the WWE does.
Well, the Young Bucks actually wrestled in TNA about the time I was really enjoying it. And I don't think they went. Actually, I know they didn't go by the Young Bucks, but I'll tell you, they were a lot of fun to watch, and they still are just as impressive as they were.
Yeah, if you watch them now in Ring of Honor, they've got they've had a big thing going with addiction, which is Daniels and Kazarian, who were in TNA. Right. Great tag team there. These guys know how to work. And then you got another old TNA tag team, the Motor City Machine Guns.
Yep.
They're supposed
Chris
to be doing
Sabin and Alex Shelley.
Exactly. I had
Yep.
the privilege of seeing them in person one night at a TNA pay-per-view. That was a great match. They really put on a show, and you put those three together in the ring at the same time, which I think is what Ring of Honor is getting ready to do at the next pay-per-view, if they haven't already done it. That's going to be a great match.
Yep. And I will say that in all the things we talk about TNA, just kind of taking one step forward and two steps back, like you put it. Ring of Honor, exact opposite. I mean, they are the up-and-coming promotion right now. There is no doubt about that. And they're doing it right.
Ring of Honor,
right.
You look at the tag teams in Ring of Honor right now, you've got the Young Bucks, you got Addiction, you got Motor City Machine Guns, you got War Machine. I mean, there's a lot of talent in Ring of Honor right now. It's just a lot of people are like not really giving it a chance yet. But give it a chance. I guarantee you, if you like wrestling, you'll like Ring of Honor.
Yep, you better believe it. You better believe it. And I'll tell you, folks, just want to remind everybody that this is a special 90-minute edition, pilot episode of Brawl For All. I'm your host, Lance Jenkins. We're live with lead pro analyst Stevie Fly, who is bringing it down tonight with the news and the interview, of course, with Preston Quinn. Really a fine job there. So I want to have this segment now, Stevie, to kind of talk about the latest rumors in the wrestling business, really across promotions. And we'll do this segment every week. It's called Thumbs Up or Thumbs Down. And Stevie, I want you to kind of tell me what you think. These are the latest rumors in the wrestling business. So let's start with this. Rumor came out within the last 5 to 6 days. WWE interested in buying TNA. Now, thumbs up, obviously, is if you think it's true, or thumbs down if you think it's false. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is WWE really interested in buying TNA?
Thumbs down. I don't think they're really interested in it. I think it's hearsay. The only way they would buy it, I'd hate to see it happen. I think that's thumbs down. I'm definitely going thumbs down.
All right. How about this? This is a rumor that came out. I'd say they've kind of been talking about this for, I want to say, about 2 to 3 weeks, seriously now. And what kind of drummed it up was the fact that Bill Goldberg was initially supposed to go into Indianapolis this weekend and do a podcast interview with Eric Bischoff. And, of course, that actually did not happen. But a lot of people were thinking, okay, suspiciously, he's headed to Indianapolis. A lot of people thought he might be making a return to the WWE with the video game push right now, and he would be doing it at Clash of Champions. Obviously, that did not happen. I don't think either one of us expected that to happen. But let's get down to it. Is Goldberg coming back to WWE?
I'm going thumbs up. If you look at the last, I think it was going to happen anyway because of, Twitter. You look at Goldberg's Twitter. One of the comments made was never say never. Then it was wheels are in motion. And, with the video game tie-in, you look at last year, I think, or the year before last, the tie-in with Sting. Sting ended up coming. I think it's definitely setting up for Goldberg to return to WWE.
All right, so the question is, in your mind, who do they? What do they have him doing? Who do they have him working against? What do you see?
Well, I'm guaranteeing they'll have him work with Lesnar. And whether that's a mistake or not, everybody remembers the last match he had in WWE was against Lesnar at WrestleMania, and that was a big stinker of a match because everybody knew Goldberg was on the way out and Lesnar was on the way out. So the only way WWE figured they could get in it was to have Stone Cold be the guest referee. And probably the best part of the match was at the end when Stone Cold ended up giving the stunner to both Goldberg and Lesnar. So to hear the crowd that night, you could tell if you get a chance to go back and watch the video of that was the crowd knew how much a stinker of a match it was. And that's everything I'm hearing right now. I can't see who else he would probably match up with. I don't think it's going to be a long-term deal with Goldberg. I think it's going to be maybe like a 2 or 3, maybe a build up of like 6 months, and he'll be at WrestleMania against Lesnar, or or it could be another match, a Lesnar and some other folks in the match. We've talked about that too.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Goldberg returns at Survivor Series. Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I'd say thumbs up. That's, it's not a, I kind of had my doubts about Clash of Champions simply because you have like 4 major pay-per-views WWE does, and that's cross-brand. That Survivor Series will be the next cross-brand pay-per-view, where Raw and SmackDown are both there. So I think that's a bigger event in WWE's mind, and I think that would be the one where he would come back at, and that would give a good 6-month build-up to WrestleMania too. I
think so. Now, talking about WrestleMania 20, which is what you were referring to when Goldberg took on Brock Lesnar, Stone Cold was a special guest referee, Madison Square Garden, if I remember correctly, in 2004. Yeah. I'll tell you, I want to ask you this. That was also a very special night for me as a wrestling fan because I remember very clearly that was the night that we saw the return of the old Undertaker. And, of course, he's been here in that form since then as the dead man. So, Undertaker, does he wrestle? Let's say this. Undertaker wrestles his last match next year at WrestleMania. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
I think it's time. I think it's time. And, just doing one match every year and doing the WrestleMania, I can understand. He's paid his dues with WWE, and for them to let him do that, that's great. Everybody looks forward to now seeing the Undertaker at WrestleMania. But the past 2 years, I'm not sure what kind of problems he's having, but after matches, when you see him passing out, reports of being carried to the hospital and kept in the hospital overnight for observation after matches. So I'll give him credit, though. He did stay with WWE a little bit longer this time after this WrestleMania. He did a program with the Wyatts after that. But I think it's time for his last match. And, WWE should definitely do him right. And I'm hoping what you're leading into something else that's going to be a thumbs up and thumbs down. And I'll let you lead into that before I go any further.
Well, let the record show that you have not seen my notes, but you're exactly right. That is exactly what I'm leading into. In fact, if you're watching the video version right now, I want you to take a look at where I have I've got these old action figures up here, and I've got Sting and The Undertaker right next to each other. So, Vince McMahon, if you're watching this, please take note. The world wants Sting versus The Undertaker. Are we going to see the two men in the same ring next year at WrestleMania in Orlando?
Thumbs up. I'm hoping. I'm really, really hoping. I wish this would have happened. Sting, you got to give the man credit, loyalty, and a little bit of fear because of what we talked about earlier with how Vince treated guys that came over from other promotions. I mean, Sting has went on record and said that he really was scared of what Vince would do with his character. Sting, everybody knows his match with Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. He was turnbuckle bombed and had a neck problem. And Sting's been out ever since. He did his Hall of Fame induction and said, he was officially retired that night, but I'm going to check in from time to time. And if you watch the Legends show JBL does with Interview with Sting, there was talk about his neck injury and talk about surgery. Sting said, well, I've held off on surgery because I've talked to some folks here and there. And the next question was, would neck surgery end your career? And Sting said, yeah, that would pretty much do it. He said, and JBL, JBL, give him credit. He's a good interviewer. He goes right to the point. Are you holding out hope for another match and maybe a match with Undertaker? And, of course, Sting said, yeah, I'd love to have a match with Undertaker. Of course, that would be, you'd love to have seen it 20 years ago. And a lot of people that don't follow it closely don't realize Sting almost appeared at WrestleMania, I believe it was WrestleMania 18. A deal was in the works for him to fight Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 18. but parties started disagreeing a couple weeks before, and didn't happen. Sting kind of got cold feet again, and he just backed away from it. But still say Sting versus Undertaker, just like you look at like Sting versus Triple H at WrestleMania. A lot of people enjoyed that. You saw the Monday Night Wars really come to a head there. But Sting versus Undertaker would really trump Sting versus Triple H.
Well, and let me ask you this one last question about Sting versus Undertaker, which, by the way, any wrestling fan out there who thought for 1 second that Sting was going to get a clean win over Triple H at WrestleMania 31, they had another thing coming. That was never going to happen. And that's a fine case in point right there that Vince McMahon was not about to put Sting over Triple H.
I would say this. If that had happened, that would have been just because Triple H wanted to put Sting over. And that would be the only reason that Triple H decided he wanted to put him over, and Vince would have been furious about it. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. But now, that's just the way it's going to be. And you've got the guy that's the son-in-law or the head of the company. He's not going to lose to Mr. WCW or Mr. NWA. That's just wasn't going to happen.
And you got to have a level of respect for Sting. I mean, he's the one guy we can say, hey, he stayed true to what he thought was his origins, and he did not let he didn't let anything get in the way of I'm not coming to WWE until I want to come to WWE. He didn't get bought out. You got to give him credit where credit's due.
Well, if you look at and the amount of money, and I'm sure Sting is pretty well off. But the amount of money he could have made in merchandising with the big merchandising machine that is WWE, what is WCW. One story he told that I've heard him tell it a couple of times was at this big media convention. I don't remember where it was at, but he was with WCW at the time. And you look, he said, I remember walking in, and he said, first of all, we don't really have first-class accommodations. He said, which that wasn't a problem. He said, and usually when you have somebody that's famous going into one of these conventions, you go in a back door. He said, they put me right through the crowd. I walked through the crowd and had to deal with that. Then the closer I get to my booth, I hear WWE, Mean Gene Okerlund, when he was still with WWE, which was WWF back then, they had a big ring. And they had guys in the ring talking all this. And I look over in my little corner. I have a little podium with a handwritten piece of paper that says Sting on it. He said, and I knew right then, and he said, I'm going home. And, WCW didn't really know how to merchandise a lot of people. They got better during the Bischoff years because that was pretty much his forte. But back then, there was no merchandising with WCW. And the amount of money he gave up there, how many times he could have been, and I love Sting. I mean, Sting was one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Just because he stuck to his guns and stuck with NWA, he stayed with TNA when they were struggling too until he finally, he figured this is my chance and went over. But a little bit late in his career, and you would love to see. Sting versus The Undertaker in 99 or in 2001 when the whole merger went over. They really dropped the ball with that whole takeover of WCW. They should have had a WCW versus WWE thing. But, with Time Warner's contract situation, they made more money staying home. So that really messed everything up there.
Well, let's get back to Ring of Honor, Rage Wrestling, et cetera, because we're wrapping up here. Got about 7 minutes left in the show tonight, folks. We thank you for joining us on this special 90-minute pilot episode of Brawl For All. Lance Jenkins, of course, is me, and I'm with Stevie Fly. And we're wrapping up the show now. A couple more things to talk about in the thumbs up or down segment. Let's get to Rage Wrestling. On October the 8th, Lasker, North Carolina will be the most happening place on the East Coast that night, folks. I'm telling you, 8 action-packed matches, Rage Wrestling live at the Northeast Academy Gym in Lasker, and it starts at 7 o'clock p.m. You can get your tickets actually on RageWarriors.com if you don't have them already. But the highlight opening round match is between 2 Ring of Honor stars, Preston Quinn and Caprice Coleman. So here it is right here. Thumbs up or down. Preston Quinn will do what he says and defeat Caprice Coleman in the first round.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one there because they're two
You get a call from him afterwards. He was listening.
I know Preston. Preston, you're probably listening to me right now. But you know what? I'm gonna go with my gut. I'm gonna say Preston wins. I'm gonna go with the old Arn Anderson deal. I think he'll work on one body part. Maybe he'll work on Caprice's leg, and that would be my strategy there, to try to ground him, try to keep him on the ground, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go against what everybody probably thinks, because he's the big name on the poster, and I know everybody said, well, he's gonna win the title just because he's the big name on the poster. But I'm going Preston Quinn with the upset in round 1.
I like your line of thinking. I think a lot of people are going to assume that Caprice wins that match because he's obviously the highlight of the night. But I'll tell you, you've seen Preston Quinn wrestle, and I think he's got what it takes to do exactly what he said in that interview.
And I'm going on record saying I'm not saying this because I'm worried about what Preston will do to me the next time he sees me. I'm going on what I saw in the ring this last match, his match for Dirty Money. Like I said, match of the night, and I definitely think he's got what it takes to win this tournament.
Well, despite the fact that whatever happens, I can tell you right now, there is no doubt in my mind that Preston Quinn versus Caprice Coleman in the first round of the Rage World Championship Tournament will be a match to be remembered. There's no doubt about that. All right, let me ask you this. We're wrapping up here in a little under 4 minutes. Here's the last of the thumbs up or down segment. Stevie, Preston Quinn eventually wins the Ring of Honor World title.
Ooh, I think that could eventually be a thumbs up. He's got a good story with him coming in late. I mean, we'll have to see what kind of push they give him. I think he's got the talent for it, and from what he said, they've got big plans for him. Anything can happen at any given time, and if these guys like what they see and they give him the right push, I think as talent-wise, do I think he's got what it takes? Yes, definitely. Do I think he can compete with Adam Cole for the belt? Definitely. There's anybody on that roster, the Jay Lethals, the Briscoes, the Fish. I mean, the TV champion he was talking about earlier. I think he can definitely compete with any of these guys. He's got the talent to do it. So I will go with thumbs up again. And like I said, not saying this because I'm scared what Preston will do to me.
Oh, sure. I
would definitely, and heel or babyface, Preston's got that charisma that just like Arn. I am definitely, even when Arn was a bad guy, which was probably some of his best work when he was a heel, but that's somebody that you want to pull for because he's blue collar. He's the hard working guy. He's the one that takes the shots, and that's what stuck out with me with Preston. I really became a Preston Quinn fan that night.
Last question for you, real quickly. We're running out of time. Is thumbs up or thumbs down? Stevie Fly will be a downloadable character in WWE 2K17.
2 thumbs up. Yeah, I will. After some of the comments I've made about Vince tonight, I don't think I'll be able to go to a WWE event. They'll probably have a picture of me. Please don't post my picture on here because Vince might have my picture taped up and say, "Do not let this guy in any event." Despite everything I say about Vince, I'll be watching Raw tonight. I watch it every week. I watch SmackDown. I love watching the wrestling, and but I've watched enough and seen enough, I think, that my opinion is just like everybody else's. Everybody's got them, but I think I could really see Stevie Fly as a downloadable character in WWE.
I can see that. I think it'll be a Christmas release. Well, Stevie, appreciate you joining us tonight. Of course, you'll be with us again next week. I want to tell you real quickly about what to expect next week. We will give an official preview of the Rage Wrestling World Championship Tournament set for October 8th, and our special guest will be Benjamin Banks. And, folks, if you want to see the major main event of the night, don't tune in to Monday Night Raw, folks. I'm telling you, it has the proportions to be an Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson matchup. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton tonight.
Oh, Lord.
If we'll see some ear biting. Don't rule it out, folks. Stevie, thanks for joining us. That's all tonight for Brawl for All. We'll see you next Monday night, 7 o'clock p.m., right here on blogtalkradio.com.
Thank you, Lance.
Stevie, good job.
Thank you, bud. Good job of you, too. That was awesome. I enjoyed every minute of that.
Yeah, we nailed it. I don't even know if we're on live still. I don't think we are, but I'll tell you, if we are, I'm fine with it. I'm just going to sit here and gloat for a second.
So be it. Everybody will just have to see us here.
I think it went well. I mean, I was sweating bullets at 7 o'clock when this thing wasn't working, but
well, I heard the music and everything. I heard the intro music and everything. I kept waiting, and then I didn't hear anything come on. I was like, "Oh crap, this is not going to be good." But and
we made it.
My text, for some reason, my text wasn't going through because I was like, I kept looking at my text, wouldn't go through. I was like, "Oh crap, I don't know what's going on." And I know I said a couple of times. I heard the guy say, or the girl say, "Mute, unmute." And when you unmuted me, I said, "Lance, if you can hear me, I can't hear you."
And see, I could hear you, but I think I had to swap computers, but I think it worked out. And I mean, we got we got 90 minutes worth of content. That's hard to put on a 90-minute show with no commercial breaks.
Well, one thing I've heard from Gaddis and from Mr. Earl is you don't want any dead air when you're doing something like that. And we didn't have. I don't think we ever had dead air.
No.
Between us two and between Preston, we never had dead air.
No, and he did a good job. He did a
a great job. I was really impressed with him.
Yep,
I hope he can do something.
Yeah,
I hope he can do something with Ring of Honor.
I hope so too. I think it went well. Well, I'm gonna click end episode and hope this doesn't make the recording. But if it does, we'll take care of that. All right. Hey, look, Stevie, I enjoyed it. We'll talk. I'll talk to you sometime tomorrow. Follow up.
All right, same here, bud. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
All right, take care.
You too, bud. Thank you, bud.
We'll see. For those of you still listening, thanks for joining us. We hope you had a good time. This is blogtalkradio.com.
If you're about to paint, you're about to save. That's if you come into the Home Depot, where the best paints and best brands are now at even lower prices. Premium paints and stains, even rollers, trays, and tape. The Home Depot has lowered the price on over 300 items throughout the paint department, like top-rated award-winning Behr paint and primers, starting at just $23.97. Whatever you're painting, your project has never been more affordable. The Home Depot. More saving, more doing. U.S. only.
Boar's Head invites you to enlighten your senses. Introducing Boar's Head Ichiban Teriyaki-style chicken. Inspired by Japanese master chefs, our signature teriyaki glaze is crafted with garlic, ginger, and a hint of brown sugar, then paired with our tender, slow-roasted chicken breast for a flavor that's sweet, savory, remarkably bold. Boar's Head Ichiban Teriyaki-style chicken, the bold flavor of Japan, now at the deli. Compromise elsewhere.